Yes.
We are live. And today we are here with Isabel Allende's 2005 book, Zorro. So, this one was a little different than the other ones we've read.
Yes.
It
was fun.
It was fun, yeah. Some of the others were like, I mean, they're great reads, but they're not like fun.
Yeah, they're not going to have hijinks in the same way that this one does.
Right, right.
There's a decent amount of hijinks and swashbuckling. Yeah.
And swashbuckling.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of has Princess Bride vibes a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
I mean, the Man in Black is definitely just being Zorro.
He's definitely Zorro.
Yeah,
for sure. So we're going to try, I think, from now on to kind of do our summaries a little bit shorter.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it tight this time.
Because last time it was like a 45-minute summary, but in fairness, we kind of had to interject a lot of stuff about history of Grapes of Wrath. But yeah, this was like, I think, the first book we've read that I don't get depressed.
Yeah, right? And I think that might be important in this time that we're in right now to remember that, like, you can try to make change, you can try to resist power and still, like, have a good time.
Yeah, for sure.
It doesn't have to be a bummer. I think we kind of get into that headspace sometimes where we're like, everything seems like it's so stacked against us. What can I do?
Yeah.
And you can kind of get frozen, you know, in the moment. Or you can just, like, spend all your time thinking about all of the different problems and then just get depressed about it, you know?
Yeah.
And Zorro doesn't do that. And he got problems.
Yeah.
And we'll go through them a little bit. So
let's do some quick historical context.
Yeah, okay. So
first.
Zorro was created by a guy named Johnston McCulley, who, like, his main thing was just coming up with dope protagonists that fit into a certain type of, like, Pulp Fiction mold. So he had a guy named the Spider, who was, like, a bad guy, who was, like, you know, in a wheelchair. So it's, like, weirdly, like very early representation for people with, like, disabilities. But his thing was, like, he had this cool crime network where he, like, you know, used a bunch of, like, you know, gases to, like, knock people out. All of his thugs didn't kill people. They were nice thugs, you know. Nice. But he had, like, a crime syndicate that he controlled from his spider's den, you know. And then he had, oh God, what are some of the other ones? Like, there was the Green Ghost, who was definitely, like, a predecessor of the Green Hornet, and the Crimson Clown, who was basically, like, the Saint, like, 10 years before the Saint. Don't tell my wife, but, you know, like, her favorite, like, swashbuckling character might have been ripped off by by Leslie Charteris from Johnston McCulley. But Zorro was supposed to be a one-off hero set in Southern California, which is where Johnston McCulley lived eventually. I think he was born in Canada, actually. And it was, you know, set during a fun and romantic period. And that's something that Isabel Allende says. There's so much going on at the turn of the 19th century.
18th, right?
19th. Like, it's the turn, you know, it's 1795.
Yeah. You're right.
And
18th into 19th.
Yeah.
There's the stupid century thing.
I hate that.
Right?
You don't count zero.
Yeah.
So there's so much going on back then because there's, like, pirates on the high seas. It's like the peak of, like, you know, the Pirates of the Caribbean kind of thing, and then you've got, like, the French Revolution, the American Revolution,
the Haitian Revolution.
You've got all the ones in the South America too, Venezuela and Chile, and and then you've got, like, the era of progress is happening too. Like, people are inventing things, and science is kind of, like, coming into its own in a modern context, and liberal ideas are proliferating, and that comes up in this book too.
Yeah, you got the Enlightenment kind of like. I mean, the Enlightenment had been around for a while now, but it's, like, definitely a lot of its ideas are solidifying in political theory. Yeah.
I think Johnston McCulley was really more interested in the fact that he could write a book about someone resisting power in California that wasn't United States power, you know? So it was kind of like, you know, no fault kind of thing, you know? It's like California's revolting against Spain, you know, and that's fine, you know, like no one's gonna be mad about that.
Right. This is I guess Zorro's main story is about 20, 30 years before the Mexican-American War.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. His main story. This is what Allende is writing an origin story, which no one, like it says in the interviews in the back of the book, that no one had ever written a Zorro origin story before.
Yeah, even Macaulay. And so he sets it in it's like 1819, you know, and the fun thing about the original story, and I didn't actually know this getting into it, because I read this book like 4 or 5 years ago on a trip to Palisade, and
an actual beach read.
Yeah, it was an actual beach read, fully, not like the last one, you know. And I was so into it, I liked it so much that I hopped like right on my fucking e-reader and got The Curse of Capistrano, which is the first Zorro origin story. And I was noticing this really fun thing where you didn't see Don Diego de la Vega and Zorro in the same place at any point, and there was no explicit indication from the narration that they were the same person. I knew they were the same person, but like it was supposed to be a secret. It was supposed to be you know, like a reveal at the end. And
but we both grew up watching reruns of the old
and we like watched the man, the Disney show was fun. I remember liking that a lot. And then the movie, the 1997 movie, which is like one of the all-time great, just like popcorn action adventure movies
with two very sexy people.
Oh my god, dude! Anthony Hopkins does it for me so hard in that movie when he's just in the cave and he's just like whipping the candle flames out, and you're just like with the little mustache and his hair slicked back. And
you mean Antonio Banderas?
No, I mean Anthony fucking Hopkins.
Okay,
go back and watch it again, man. Okay. As someone in his 40s, I'm like, yo, dude can get it.
And Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Catherine Zeta-Jones is always gorgeous, absolutely. And you'll never see a prettier Antonio Banderas. He's phenomenally hot in that movie. But to be honest, Daddy Zorro does it for me harder than anybody else. Yeah.
One really cool thing that like the original Zorro book, the novel, which was published in 1919, was so popular that in 1920 it came out as a silent film. Yeah, Douglas Fairbanks. It was the very first movie to ever have a sword fighting consultant on it, which is cool. And what also was cool is it sold 50 million copies. That's insane to me. 50 million. I mean, but you know what? Like just like 10 or 20 years later, like the Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman comics all sold those numbers too, which is just bonkers now, because if a Superman or a Batman comic sells like 3 million copies, it's the best selling comic out. It's crazy. I found this in my fridge. It's Wandering Dawn IPA from Firestone Beer in California. I thought that was extremely appropriate. Yeah, very appropriate. And I just wanted to shout them out because I had one earlier and it was delicious. And that's what he is, a Wandering Dawn. He is a Wandering Dawn, exactly. It was so prescient. So, let's get into the summary. Yeah. And Matt picked the book, so Matt gets the summary. Yeah, absolutely. So, we start off our tale with a little bit of backstory about the parents of Don Diego. His father is a kind of like a soldier of fortune. He comes from a well-respected family, but he doesn't have any money. So he travels to the Americas, and he quickly meets up with a real-life character, a couple real-life characters, Pedro Fages in his very tempestuous wife, Eulalia de Cazé, and they're funny because in history they're famous for being the first governors of the territory in California, but also for having like such body like tempestuous fights that like word spread. And when she's coming over, because Pedro obviously has to come out first to make sure everything's okay, but he sends for his wife, and she's escorted by Don Alejandro, and she takes her time getting there, and there are rumors that it's because she's in love with the Don, and which is Zorro's father. Yes, Don exactly. Alejandro. Yes, and
but eventually they get there, and there wasn't any funny business as far as the narrator is aware, and they so Pedro Fages and Eulalia, like they have these constant arguments, and at one point Alejandro comes to visit them and is able to draw her out and like tells her of this lady that he met in another scene, which is a real thing that happened. This is so cool. Doña Perna, Zorro's mom, was a real life character too, and she also stormed the mission. Like
really?
This scene where so we also have this this character Bernardo. Not Bernardo.
That's not Bernardo.
No, Bernardo doesn't show up yet. What's the priest's name?
Don. No, not Don. Padre.
Where
was he at?
Well, the padre of this town that they're in, of Los Angeles, he is
Father Mendoza.
Father Mendoza.
Father Mendoza.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He's a cool dude, but he's got. I mean, he does Catholicism at people, so it's a
he's a Franciscan.
Like, he's a Franciscan with a heart of gold. So he's like he really cares about the indigenous people, but he does have to like convert them. Mm-hmm. He doesn't use the extreme methods though, but he does. Like
he's still a missionary.
He's still a missionary, exactly.
I will say they do mention the beginning because you probably in researching the book like knew that there's like a difference between the Franciscans and the Jesuits, and that the Jesuits were a much more learned, focused society.
And they mentioned that at one point that he would have been better suited to be a Jesuit.
Because he was a man who liked books and study and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but they are being there's like some rebellious activity from the tribes in the area, and they've got this cool ass leader, basically the fox. I think the Gray Fox is her name, and
well, she has a wolf's head, right?
Or maybe it's a wolf. Yes, exactly.
Wolf, how did you pronounce her name?
Well, I didn't pronounce it. Oh, Toya Perna. Yes.
Toya Perna.
Yeah.
Yeah, Toya Pernia, or is
Toya
it
Pernia? Yeah,
Toya
that's probably right.
Yeah,
I don't speak Spanish.
Yeah, Toya Pernia, which is this badass warrior.
She's a badass warrior. She comes in, she has her troops storm the mission, and they've been taking out missions left and right. But Don Alejandro is at the mission at that moment, and so he helps the Franciscan friar to defend it, and he does a very good job, and they end up capturing Toya Perna, and he's like shocked to find out that she's a young, beautiful woman, and but she's been badly wounded in the fighting, and so they bring her back to health, and
fall in love.
They fall in love, and Don Alejandro realizes that like he can't be around her, but he wants to like take her somewhere safe, and she's like willing to convert to Catholicism potentially. So he sees this as a project that the wife of Pedro Fages can undertake to have a hobby while she's stuck in California for 3 years, and so she does, and
tame her.
Yeah, tame her. It's like a very taming of the shrew kind of situation, and so Eulalia does this, and it kind of like they become very good friends, and she's fond of Alejandro and fond of Toya Perna, who becomes Regina.
Yeah. The I is like an E in Spanish.
You're right. Thank you. And they say Regina in England, and I'm always just like, how do you guys not laugh when you say that?
Yeah.
So yeah, her name. She like changes her name to Regina, and eventually the governor goes back to Spain, and he gives Don Alejandro this like great parcel of land for him to like take advantage of, and he and Regina they fall in love, they get married, and he tries to integrate her into the like white society in Los Angeles, but it doesn't go great really, and Toya Perna / Regina is not super into that anyway, but they have a baby, and weirdly, incidentally, one of their servants is also like pregnant and has a baby like the next week or like within the same week. Actually, that's very important.
Yeah.
And Regina is very like the pregnancy doesn't go great, or rather the delivery doesn't go great, and she has to convalesce for like a while, a month.
She almost dies in childbirth.
She almost dies in childbirth, and she has to convalesce. And Anna, their servant, like nurses both Don Diego, the main character, and Bernardo, his milk brother, who's like the secondary protagonist of the story. And they grew up together. They get into a lot of fun adventures. I won't get into too many of them because it goes on, but they meet Diego's grandma, who teaches them like the ways of their people, and they find this cool cave underneath the hacienda that they grow up in.
White Owl is her name.
White Owl is her name. She's rad also. She's like such a cool character.
She's like an indigenous medicine.
She's a shaman.
Yeah.
And she does their initiation when their dad goes out of town for a little while.
They go on like a little vision quest.
A vision quest. It sounds rad.
Yeah.
Or rather is rad. It's just fun to read. And that's where Bernardo finds his spirit animal is this like black colt, like this new little whatever a baby horse is called. And
I think Colt is right.
I think Colt, right?
Yeah.
And then I live in Colorado. I should definitely know this, but oh well.
We're not horse people.
Yeah, we're not. We're city boys. Diego like encounters a fox. You know, it like basically he's almost about to die at the end of his vision quest.
He gets bitten by a rattlesnake.
By a rattlesnake, exactly. And the fox goes and like gets Bernardo, and Bernardo saves him and takes him to White Owl when she heals him. And he's like, "Oh, Grandma, I couldn't find my spirit animal." She's like, "You definitely did. It's a fox. It's cool." And
from then on, they have kind of like a telepathic connection.
They do. They've got this cool like twin telepathy thing because they're basically twins and
milk brothers. And
I forgot before they go on their vision quest, their town was attacked by pirates. It's really brutal. Toya Perna almost dies. Bernardo's mom, Anna, is like gang raped and brutally murdered by
the pirates.
By the pirates. And she hides him in the big wicker laundry basket that's in their room. And so he like has to hear it the whole time. He doesn't see what happens, but he hears it, and that's probably even worse, really, if you think about it.
Yeah.
And
he's mute for the rest of his life.
Yeah, he says like a dozen words, I guess, on page that we know of throughout the rest of the book.
Right.
At one point, he's like he falls in love with a girl from not his tribe, but his step, or like I guess his grandma's tribe, White Owl's tribe.
Right.
He falls in love with
Light of the Night.
Light of the Night, and she's super cool, and she's like 5 years older than him or something like that, and he's about to go off to Spain with Diego, and she's like, "Hey man, let's just, I love you, like let's be bonded." So they get to do it, and he's confessing this to White Owl as he's about to leave. He's like, do you think she'll be here when I get back? And she's like, "Man," because they can sign. No, that's the way that he and Diego communicate is through sign language.
Yeah.
Sign language. And so he's signing to White Owl. He's like, "Do you think she'll be back?" And she's like, the one thing that a woman loves more than anything else is a man who only has words for her. And it's just like, oh.
Yeah.
Because he only speaks to her.
So
cool.
Yeah.
And anyway, so they have to go off to Spain because Diego needs to be trained in like being a Spaniard, I guess. And so his dad sets him up with a friend of his from school, from the Academy of the Humanities, and in Barcelona. And when they arrive there, it's very like Ms. Havisham-ish, it's like the place is kind of like run down but grand. It's like grand and in decay, and you find out that his wife had all the money and he inherited when she passed away, and he's just like super bad at being a business guy or being a richo, and he just likes to read and like hang out with his daughters. And his daughters are super cool. One of them is Juliana, and she's like the most beautiful girl in Barcelona.
Everybody's after her.
Everybody's after her. She's got raven black hair that like hangs in like natural ringlets, which was the fashion at the time. If you ever see a Jane Austen adaptation, all the girls have these like ringlets that they're striving over.
Right. Keira Knightley does.
Exactly. And then the younger daughter named Isabel, interestingly, who's like not hot and has like a wonky eye and twice as much hair as she needs to have. And if you look at a picture
Enough
of Isabel,
for 2 heads.
Isabel, exactly.
Yeah.
Isabel Allende, she's very pretty. So I think she's just doing a thing where she's like inserting herself into the book, but like not being the Mary Sue character. She's like, you know, she's like taking the piss out of herself in the way that like Agatha Christie does with Ariadne Oliver, I think. So Isabel immediately is into Diego. And Diego lobbies to have Bernardo like stay with him in his rooms because they're like, he's a servant. He should definitely be in the servants' quarters. He's like, nah, he's my brother. And his dad had given him a book from a fencing master, Manuel Escalante, and the Maestro.
Maestro Escalante.
Maestro Escalante. And so he seeks him out when he gets there because he had been practicing all the forms throughout his childhood. Like, never a day went past that he didn't practice with this, the epee. And
the rapier.
The rapier, the epee, the saber, I don't know, swords. And so he seeks him out, and he doesn't come from, like, you know, a noble family. He comes from, like, an honorable family with a great history of serving Spain in, like, the military, but not, like, a landed gentry family. But he proves himself to Manuel Escalante when he goes to like basically audition for his academy, and so he takes him on, and
then along comes the bad guy.
Yeah, along comes the bad guy, man. Fucking this dude. What's his name? Oh
Moncado.
Moncado. Yeah, Moncado is the bad guy from like most of the Johnston, like the early stories, and he's like he like gets a position in like the police or something like that in the Curse of Capistrano.
Yeah.
But he's also in love with Juliana, and so he's vying for her attention.
He comes from a super wealthy family.
Super
connected.
Yeah, he's like the bachelor about town. He's like a couple years older than they are too, and like he really should have locked it down, but he's like had his eye on Juliana the whole time, which is like gross in a way. And so he's like kind of a reoccurring bad guy throughout. Basically at this time in Spain, they are being occupied by France, and so the
Napoleonic Wars are
going on. Napoleon has installed his brother as the Emperor of Spain, and he's got a second, the Chevalier, who basically is like the only friend of like note that Juliana and Isabel's father has. And so he's around. There's some like intrigues with the former governor of California's wife, who is Mikado's aunt, and she's like his mom. Like his mom is gone. Like I think his parents are gone. I think he's still rich.
I don't think they ever really explicitly writes.
But she doesn't have any children that survive.
Yeah.
So
it's like her favorite nephew. Is what
exactly.
Mentioned is multiple times.
Right, and so
then there's the duel.
Yeah. So at one point, at a party that she invites Diego to, because he goes and sees her every so often because his parents are friends of hers, and so he's just like paying his courtesies as like what rich folk do, and you know, when you don't have to like work and stuff like that, you just go and see people out of respect. And so he goes and sees her a couple times. One time he comes over and he is like surprised to find that there's a party. And one thing that we did mention, we didn't mention their whole voyage over, which is very exciting, and a lot of stuff happens in it. But one of the things that happens is that on the boat from Panama to Spain, Diego and Bernardo take advantage of all the rope climbing they can do to be very acrobatic. They also play cards with the pirates, and Diego has this astounding luck, which is definitely also like, you know, sleight of hand and stuff like that. He learns that from the cook, and he learns like reading and fancy stuff from the captain, who has this interesting medallion that is revealed at one point when he's yelling at Diego about something he did. And that comes up later. So at this party in Barcelona, Diego is watching this other dude that he met one time, who's a Russian in California. This Russian heard the story about this prank that Diego and Bernardo played like with a bear, capturing a bear. And he's telling this story. He sees Diego across the room. He's like, Diego de la Vega, come over here. And you got to hear about this story about this bear. And that like pisses off Mikado because he doesn't like to not be the center of attention.
Right.
And he's also, as Diego can see when he's watching them play cards, cheating. And so Diego tells his Russian friend, like, hey man, it's really interesting how much this guy over here is winning, isn't it? And it like spoils the whole thing. So rich dude, villain, storms out and like sees Bernardo, who he recognizes, and he like just starts to cane him, and Bernardo's like just kind of surprised but not really hurt because he's a tough dude. But Diego sees this happen and challenges Mikado to a duel. And so the cool thing about this duel is that, you know, it takes a little while to set up, but when it's happening, Diego is kind of like, because his fencing teacher has instructed him in like how to be in a fight, he like all of a sudden his blood comes down. He like gets very cool headed. And like, you know, they do this thing where they like have to be in profile, and he takes a hit in the arm, you know, a little hit in the arm. He turns around because he's obviously shooting with his right and just shoots in the ground. And
Hamilton style.
Hamilton shoots up.
Oh, shoots up.
Yeah. It would have been better if Hamilton had shot down.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe. But the rules of this type of duel is like one guy goes first, then the next guy instead of simultaneously. That would have saved Hamilton and his kid's life. But yeah, he gets hit. He just turns around, but when dude thinks he's about to get shot, he pukes, and it's so fucking funny. And so Diego's second asks him like, why didn't you shoot to kill? And he's like, I didn't want to kill him. I wanted to humiliate him. And that's just
and he
badass.
did. Yeah. He scared the puke out of him.
Scared the puke right out of him. And his friends have to come up and be like, it's cool, man. Calm down.
Yeah.
You're okay. And it's like squashed. The beef is squashed.
And,
ostensibly.
And Mancado is also like hiring the Roma to like go in and
do shenanigans.
Yeah, I mean all kinds of shenanigans, like fake
to rob the Russian. To sing to Juliana.
Yeah. He's like using them all to like do their dirty work until he finally decides, because that's like the next major event. He decides that like maybe these guys are not, they're too much more trouble. Like we flash.
So he tries to get rid of them, and Bernardo, through like the servants network basically, which is like the European version of the Indian network, you know, that they have in California. He like hears that the Roma people are gonna get like wiped out by Mikado's like goons, basically. He's he's sicking the cops on them. That's what he's trying. That's what he's gonna do. And so they get out of town. In the meantime, like prior to that, Bernardo and Diego were like in the circus. That was one of their pastimes, is just like doing circus stuff with these guys because they love being on trapeze and stuff like that. And Diego has a brief affair with one of the Roma ladies. She just sees that he's like a teenager and she's widowed and sad. And she's like, I'll help you out. And
we'll help each other out.
Yeah, we'll help each other out. Exactly. And so those guys split, and that's basically when like we flash forward basically like a year in the book. Mikado is like sent to South America to do chocolate related stuff because that's what his aunt's main business is. And Diego doesn't make really any headway with Juliana, maybe like a little bit. But he gets inducted into this dope secret society because his fencing teacher is part of a secret society called
La Justicia.
And they have a little like medallion, just like the one that he saw his buddy, the captain of the Madre Dios, that brought him over to Spain. And so he goes through a bunch of trials.
Yeah, and it's Maestro Escalante who inducts him after the duel because he's so impressed with his behavior in the duel.
Yes,
he's like, this kid's special, and he's an incredible warrior with a sword. So he gets inducted into that society, and it's a society. What I wrote down the little things, so they have like a symbol. Yeah. Yes, they have their thing is to seek justice, nourish the hungry, clothe the naked, protect widows and orphans, give shelter to the stranger, and never spill innocent blood. So that's like the oath. This
oath sounds a lot like the 5 basic virtues of the Okoye, which is what White Owl teaches Diego and Bernardo back in their childhood, which is the 5 basic virtues are honor, justice, respect, dignity, and courage. It's just like that. There's a bunch of dualities in this book. Everything's kind of a duality in a way. La Justicia and the Okoye are like kind of like the same thing on different continents. Bernardo and Diego are like basically 2 mirror images that like go in different directions. I mean, it goes on and on. I mean, Diego is Zorro and Don Diego. At one point he realizes that he's like kind of more one part of himself when he's got the mask on, and kind of like, you know, more like one part of himself when he's being the, you know, the Don, and
his mixed identity.
He's mestizo,
so he's part Spanish, part Indigenous.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, he joins La Justicia, but then basically right after that, things pop off. Napoleon overreaches, gets captured, and then the king comes back. You know, the emperor has to leave and the king comes back. But right before the emperor leaves, the Chevalier says to Juliana and Isabel's dad, like, you should probably bail, man. You should probably get out of town. Go to Italy. You know, you'll be cool there. And he's like, yeah, I'll think about that. Maybe this summer. And basically within like 3 months, Mancado is back, and he is like going to use the power of the king, the state, to put pressure on Juliana to marry him. She says no because she finds out through, circumstances that he's a bad dude. He basically like stages an attack on her so he can rescue her. And Bernardo like knows what the deal with that is. He tells Diego about it, and they go and they like take him to the circus, and they're like, was this those guys? And they're like, because we like you so much, you two specifically, we'll be honest about, like, we'll break our pact where we don't talk to white folk, and we'll tell you that, yeah, this was staged. And so she's like, I will never marry you, dude. And so he has her dad arrested, so then he can save her again. But it turns out, if you get someone's dad arrested during like the reinstitution of the Inquisition, you can't undo that.
Yeah, and
maybe you never did actually want to undo that.
Yeah. And then this is where you really see Zorro appear.
Yeah, absolutely, right. Absolutely. So Zorro, like,
and Zorro means fox.
Zorro means fox, yeah.
Right.
But
there's a couple other little adventures.
Yeah,
where
I'm trying
he,
to remember.
Dresses up.
They basically have to go on the run, and they have to run all the way across Spain. And it's basically the same route that like pilgrims do, but they bail. It's so funny because like, so Mancado comes to the house and he's like, "You gotta marry me," and she's like, "I will never fucking marry you, dude." And he gets rough with her. Diego like barges in, challenges him to a sword fight, but then immediately realizes like, I should probably not let him know how good at fighting I am. So he starts to act like
kind of an idiot.
Or like,
but he keeps dodging.
Yeah, he's like doing the drunken master thing where he's it looks like he's falling, but he's dodging, and he's like actually kind of like getting the upper hand and like wrapping dude in a curtain and stuff. And they basically end up putting him in this weird secret room. In Juliana's dad's library that's got like pervy shit in it. It's like, it's art. Some of it's like Goya, but other stuff is like tomes of erotica. But
before
also
that, the reason that Zorro appears is because they rescue Juliana's dad. So they break into the prison.
They don't rescue the dad.
Yeah, they do.
No, they get to visit him and like sell the the lands and stuff like that.
Never mind. Because he was in the King's Fortress. No, there was another rescue before that.
Well, he rescues his own dad later, but that's skipping ahead.
No, there was another rescue before.
Who rescues Manuel Escalante? Oh, yes, you're right.
That's right.
So you said we were going to be able to be brief with this, but it's like there's so much that happens in this book, and it's so good. Like, yeah, no, he does. He rescues because Manuel Escalante is part of La Justicia. There it is. He gets captured, and Zorro like goes to another member. Julius Caesar is the code name of this guy. Goes to another member of the secret society, and he's like, "We got to break him out." He's like, "That's a crazy plan, but to be honest, I don't see what else we should be doing right now." Mm-hmm. So they break in. It's super cool. He poses as his rival. And says that, like, my aunt has, like, because of the king's return, here are all these casks of wine. But he, like, dopes it with this super cool, like, sleeping potion that his grandma gave him before he was going to go on his trip, just to use in case of emergency. This is a thing he had used to get the bear when he was a kid, but he stole it that time. Mm-hmm. So he dopes them all and, like, is able to break in, get his master out, and then, like, the remaining guys that are awake, like, descend on him, and they have this epic duel, and his fencing master's like, he still fights from anger sometimes. I can tell he's working really hard. He's, like, getting sweaty, but meanwhile, I'm over here just, like, not breaking a sweat and doing a great job taking down as many guys. They don't kill anybody, though. That's how good they are. Mm-hmm. And they escape. And then, they lock Moncado in a secret room, and
they flee.
They do leave a note for his aunt, though, that, like,
so he won't
or suffocate or whatever.
Suffocate. Yeah. I was like, it's like a bookshelf. It's not really not airtight, but
yeah. But you just want to be sure.
Yeah. So they leave a note. They flee,
mm-hmm.
and they walk the path of the pilgrims. They disguise as pilgrims because they figure Moncado's can have all the coast of the West Coast watched.
Yeah.
So they go east instead,
mm-hmm, which is crazy.
Where they finally, like, there's a couple of adventures and hijinks where they have to kind of defend themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And really clever, like Isabel and Juliana, and then their escort, which Nulia. They like the idea, like they dress up like they have yellow fever, and they put on this makeup. So when these guys try to, like, assault them,
egg yolk.
It's egg yolk. And they're like, oh my god! And then like the guys who are, like, trying to assault the women, like, run away, and then but then, like, they run into the Roma again. They winter with the Roma,
mm-hmm.
and then they finally get over, and then they
get to, like, the pilgrimage site, but that's also where the Madre Dios is, mm-hmm. and Diego,
the same ship that he came from Panama happens to be in the port, and mm-hmm. so, like, he's like, well, I can't take on fugitives, and then he shows him his medallion.
Yeah, he's like,
I'm
bro,
a member of society, bro.
I bet you got one of these. I bet you got one of these, don't you? Though I know you do. He's like, all right, we'll do it. We'll sneak you on. It's cool.
Yeah.
And they have a very cool crossing. One of the images that really stuck in my head the first time I read this book was the moment where they find out that Juliana is, like, an amazing musician, mm-hmm. Really great at playing the harp. And so at one of the ports, the captain of the ship, like, brings on board a harp, and then she, like, plays it for them in the evening times, and it's really pretty. Mm-hmm. But then there's a storm that happens. It blows them off course. They land in the clutches of famous pirate privateer Jean Lafitte.
Corsair.
Yes. he corrects him and says privateer a couple times, and they're like, big eye roll. Okay, bro. I'm a privateer. I have a legal reason. Yes, I've got permission. From Colombia.
Yeah.
To do this. And they're like, great. All right, well, this is New Orleans, bro. And he takes him to New Orleans. He, like, it's a pretty brutal battle, and he and Zorro are evenly matched. Yeah. And that's the first time that's happened since Zorro met his master. And
he's, like, impressed.
He's impressed, and he's like, you are clearly a man of quality, as am I, so...
And so is Juliana.
And Juliana's of exceptional quality, so I'm going to hostage you guys and demand money mm-hmm. from your father, who's still alive. Mm-hmm. And so they set that up. He takes them to his pirate base just outside of New Orleans, and it sounds like the coolest place in the fucking world, actually.
And I want to put a pin into that place because I've like got some stuff to talk about anthropologically.
Perfect.
About
Let's
pirates
do that. It's very integrated. It's democratic. Women don't have rights, but everybody else does. They like he can't even like change his plan after it's agreed upon because they have to vote on it. So he's like, how am I gonna like marry Juliana even though my wife is sick and ailing and I have a new child? So that's the situation when they're in New Orleans. Lafitte and Juliana fall in love like instantaneously. Yeah. They're both super hot for each other.
Yeah, yeah.
And Don Diego was like, felt like he was making a little bit of progress with this girl that he's loved for 5 years since he got to Spain during their pilgrimage and then the crossing. But like,
that's all out.
It's all out the fucking window. She's like
hot pirate.
I've been reading romantic novels my whole life, and this is the dude I was looking for this whole time. Mm-hmm. Look up John Lafitte. By the way, there are some very flattering renditions of him on Google Images. But it turns out that dude's wife is actually dead, and his mother-in-law didn't tell him about it because where she comes from, she's the queen of Senegal, actually. And where she comes from, it's none of his business to see the wife if she's deceased. And if she had just had a new baby, if she died because of childbirth, there is a thing where like basically her ghost can appoint a successor to be the mother of her child. Mm-hmm. And so she's having famous voodoo lady Marie Laveau look into this for her. Mm-hmm. And so when she realizes that they were like instantly attracted to each other like that, and that Juliana was actually willing to sacrifice the money that they had stowed in their like seams, with jewels and doubloons and stuff like that. She's willing to spend that to rescue slaves instead of like buy her own freedom. She's like, okay, this girl might be cool. I'm not happy that she's white, but like, I'm going to talk to Maria about this. Maria Vo was like, yeah, that's the girl. That's the one. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Your daughter picked her for sure. And, so they leave Juliana behind
and Juliana is very happy.
Juliana is super psyched about that.
Yeah.
And
Don Diego not so much.
Yeah, we find out. No, he's
Zorro. Yeah.
It's the only time we ever see him fully lose his cool. But apparently he's like storming around, pulling his hair out, like screaming and railing, like how could you stay with this pirate, this slaver? And
he even like confronts him and challenges him to duel. He's like, dude, we got married last night.
Yeah, sorry, bro.
we got married last night.
There were witnesses and everything.
It sounds like consummation too.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, they have to go back to California now because he gets a psychic message from his brother that things are not good.
Yeah, he feels a sense of urgency. Something's really wrong.
And he hadn't been feeling that on the voyage before that, so that's like doubly concerning to him. So he goes back to California, and
it's him, Isabel,
and
Nulia. The three of them get back.
Yeah.
And Fernando actually meets them at the port.
Yeah, because he knew that they were coming, because that's how
he had like been there for a week.
The twinsy connection works. Yeah, right. Exactly. And he's like, yeah, things are not great. He signs that to them, and he's like, you got to go talk to God, I can't remember the guy's name.
Padre
Mendoza.
Yeah.
You gotta go talk to Padre Mendoza, and Padre Mendoza is in rough shape. He's looking old and haggard, like things have not been good. Turns out like a year ago, Mikado got there and has been ruling with an iron fist, basically taken over as like the adjutant to the governor, and has been running this pearl diving scheme. So he's been pressing all of the strong, healthy indigenous males that he can find into pearl diving. They're not experts in this. There are people that could do this work if you wanted to talk to Spain and have them send dudes from like Mexico.
Then you can't skim.
But then you can't skim off the top. Exactly. Or maybe just take it all for yourself and your partner who runs the prison. So
and accuses his father of treason and throws
out of revenge.
Because of course the first thing he shows up at the mission and is like, where is Juliana? And he's like, sorry, bro. She's back with dude and
yeah. And who is this man? And
in New Orleans.
Like, yeah, he's a respectable businessman.
Yeah,
they are happily married. And
he's like, curses.
Yes, exactly. So he's taken over the hacienda. He's stationed his guys there.
Yeah, his house. Don Diego's house is gone.
Exactly.
So.
And it turns out his dad is in El Diablo, which is a very nasty looking prison.
Yeah, the prison.
The prison.
Yeah, and that's where they're using the people to do pearl diving and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So they go out to talk to White Owl and Toyoperna, and turns out they're like, let's help you make a plan. And we're so happy to see you, by the way. We meet Bernardo's family.
Oh, we forgot one thing.
What's that?
Right after they leave Juliana, they stop in Cuba, and that's where he get his full...
Oh, that's where he's like, Lafitte's outfit, I basically want all of that, plus a sombrero and a mask. Mm-hmm. And so, he gets two of them.
He gets two of them.
And he gets a duplicate sword made of Justine, the sword that his Roma friend, who has a forge made for him, the best sword ever. He can throw it up in the air, catch it by the hilt after it does a couple somersaults. It's super good. And so he has a duplicate of that made for his brother.
So he's got two Zorro costumes going into this final little adventure.
Yeah, exactly. And so they come up with a plan, and then they go back to the caves, the secret caves under the hacienda, and they come up, and he's like, Renata, you are my brother. I want to fight for justice. I want to make that my life's work. Here's this cool outfit and sword I had made for you. They practiced sword fighting with each other all the time when they were kids. And Bernardo helped him practice for his trials with the secret society. So
he's also but he's good.
An excellent swordsman. Yeah, he's also an excellent swordsman. And the only thing he might not be as good at is the horseback riding, because Diego learned a bunch of tricks from the Roma that they were traveling with, and they're like the best horse people in the world. So but he's got other skills.
We forgot to also mention that Bernardo got word that Light of the Night had a kid, so
that's why he had to leave.
He leaves Spain way before.
Yeah, like 2 years before.
Before they get back.
Yeah, and he's got like a beautiful wife and child. And when Diego sees him standing with his family, he seems to be glowing, and I love that part too. So they're like, all right, we got to concoct this plan. It's a harebrained scheme. Diego dresses up like a monk. He steals one of Padre Mendoza's, his like only other robe, and a bunch of stuff to make bombs from the basement. I don't know why they have like silver nitrate and stuff like that down there, wicks and things. There's probably reasons. Because it used to be a fortress. That's right.
Yeah, right.
It started out as a fortress before his mission.
And he takes some of.
He takes the glasses from Nulia.
Yeah, and he also gets some of the hair from his grandmother.
Yeah, to make a beard.
So it looks like he has.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
And one of the things that his grandmother told him is that her brother, who is blind but sees in the night is his name, is like the guy that helped design. The prison was also a fortress back in the day. Mm-hmm. He helped design the fortress, and he has been living there for 40 years as like a servant. And he might be an asset when they get in there. Mm-hmm. Another thing that we might have failed to mention is that there's this little blonde girl that was in love with Diego when they were kids. She used to write him love notes, all this stuff and stuff like that all the time before he left. And her cousin is the guy that runs the prison. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But she goes and does good work. She, as shitty as that dude is, she's nice. Mm-hmm. So they break into the prison, and the way that that Diego breaks into the prison is actually by riding in Lapita, the blonde girl's carriage. And she like makes the introduction. She's like, "This is the priest that was supposed to be coming." And they're like, "Great, okay, you can like stay in this room over here." And like, what is Season of the Dark's like slave name? It's like I don't think starts with an A. It's like Algiers or Aloysius or something like that. They're like, take him, show him over there. And as they're walking, he's like, "You're not a priest, are you?" And he's like, "How do you know that?" He's like astounded because if a blind man can suss him out, like anybody should be able to see it. He's like, "Well, because you smell like my sister's hair and wood glue."
Yeah.
He's like, "Well, your sister says hi. I'm actually her grandson." And he's like, "Cool. All right. Well, let's do this scheme that you got planned then." And so the plan is, he's in his like luggage. He snuck in like a bunch of bombs and some rope, and he's gonna like lower the rope down and like drop the bombs down one by one, and they're gonna catch him and set him up around the prison, and then they're gonna come up the rope and like kind of siege the place. Basically, just make a bunch of distractions so that they can
things catch on fire.
That the two Zorros can sneak down into the dungeons and break everybody out. They're not just going in for his dad; they're going in for everyone. And while that's happening, that all goes off basically without a hitch. But while that's happening, like Diego's like, wait a minute. There's this whole pearl con that's going on right now. If I get those pearls, I can solve Padre Mendoza's like problems too, because he's like destitute now because they've been taking all the resources for themselves over here. And so he goes and has a cool fight with like Alcazar or whatever.
Yeah, Alcazar.
The warden's name is, and he just like owns him really like twice. It's very funny.
He's like literally dancing around him like he's nothing.
Yeah,
and it's like the playful Zorro that like
it's Bugs Bunny stuff.
It's Bugs Bunny stuff.
Yeah,
he's just like such a skilled swordsman that he's just like like dancing around, making fun of him and mocking him.
Yeah,
it's actually kind of Spider-Man-y.
Oh, 1000%.
It's like very like
because he's quipping the whole time.
He's quipping the whole time,
and he does it so much that he exasperates the guy into like not only so he has him blow the locks off of the main reservoir of pearls, but what he teases him some more. He's like, this guy's a scoundrel. I know there's more, and he teases him to the point where he like looks at a bust of Jesus' mom, Mary, yeah. And he's like, oh, it's in there. So he like leaves with the main batch of pearls, and then like
waits a second,
like leans in, and he's like, I knew it. Give me those too. And he gets a bag of like way better pearls, like the good shit. And he's looking at it, he's like, this is like 100 times what the girls snuck over to like, but what Lafitte said is like the gems that they had on them could buy the slaves freedom, buy their freedom, and be dowries for both of them.
Yeah.
So this is a shit ton of money in pearls.
That they're stealing from the Spanish king.
Exactly. They're stealing from Spain. That's a good point. I hadn't actually thought about that literally. Yeah. And so they make their escape. In doing so, Lupita sees Diego for the first time in his Zorro regalia. She's like, just as hard as Juliana fell for Lafitte, that's how hard she falls for Zorro. She's like so into him. And he gets to be dashing and like give her a smooch and also like rescue his dad. And they ride off and he gets on Tornado, which is the colt from that his brother found on the Vision Quest, that he had his wife trained to like respond to whistles, which is so fucking cool. And they make their escape, but Diego splits off and he goes to see Padre Mendoza, and he's like, Padre, you'll hear something about a jailbreak in the morning, but I want you to know that these pearls also broke out of jail and they're for you. And he's like, I couldn't possibly. And he's like, send them to Spain as evidence of the corruption that these guys are doing. And he's like, okay, I can do that. And he's like, and here's some other ones for you. And he's like, I won't even look at these. These are sinful. And he's like, dude, you don't have to look at them to spend them, to change them in for cash. And he's like, okay. And he puts them in his little priest's robes.
Friar outfit.
Yeah. And like just before that, he was thinking about all the stuff that was stolen from this mission and was like questioning his faith. And then Zorro shows up and gives him a bag of pearls. It's a very funny scene.
Yeah.
And the next day at the mission, because that's where they're still staying, Mikado shows up with all of his guys, and he's like, I know that Diego is Zorro because Zorro was making problems in Barcelona when Diego's there. And now Diego shows up here, and all of a sudden there's people cutting Z's and everything. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And they arrest him. And, but like basically right away,
Zorro shows up.
Yeah, Zorro shows up. And, right before that, they're like, do you have the pearls, Padre? And Padre Mendoza's like, I do have the pearls. And he's like, swear to me that there are no other pearls. And he's like, I swear to God, I have not seen any other pearls besides the pearls in that box.
Yeah.
So good.
And he also says, and by the way, I already sent a letter off.
Yeah, about these
about
pearls.
The pearls on the Indian network.
Yeah.
So they're already going to know about them. And he's like, shit.
Yeah, exactly. Fuck, we're fucked. And so he takes Diego back to the hacienda, not knowing that, like, oh man, Diego's like got ways in and out of the hacienda he couldn't even dream of. And he Sergeant Garcia's in charge of him. But Sergeant Garcia was like Diego and his brother stopped like bullies from picking on Sergeant Garcia when he was a little kid. Mm-hmm. So he loves Diego, and he's like, he's in charge of him. They put him in a room for a couple days, and he's like, do you know how long you were in that room for? That's how long I was trapped in that wine cellar that you trapped me in back in Barcelona. And he's like, oh, all right, cool. Whatevs,
Yeah.
And then Zorro shows up all of a sudden, and Garcia comes in, and he's like, man, you got to get out here. There's Zorro. I knew Diego wasn't Zorro. He's too nice. And
Mikado's like, get him.
They run off. But then another Zorro sneaks in the secret doorway that you may have seen if you've watched any Zorro media into this room and bonks Mikado on the head, and they get out of there and tie him up instead. No, they don't do that. They do that to the guard.
Yeah,
that's right.
The guard, yeah.
The guard. And then Diego's like, how can there be 3 Zorros? And Isabella's like, it's me. Yeah. I've been practicing sword fighting from your sword fighting manual this whole time. I'm super good at that. And writing, the right way, not side saddle. And he's like, no, all right, pretty good. And
Mikado has to end up going back to Spain.
Yeah, Mikado has to go back to Spain. They blackmail him. They take the letter that he wanted his Alejandro to sign and Diego to sign to say that they were doing corruption. They force him to add an addendum about the whole Pearl business and sign his name to it, and then seal with a stamp
and give him a little Z.
And then give him a little Z on his throat. Yep. Yeah. And
memory.
Yeah, and that's basically it. And then you just find out that everything worked out pretty good for everybody.
And then, of course, they say, Mikado does come back many times.
Yeah.
He's in his trouble.
Right.
And then...
the warden dies fairly soon after that. And we're not saying it's because, Mikado had, goons kill him to silence him about the whole
But it was probably
business.
that.
But it was probably that. Yeah.
So that's, the core of the story. She gives you a little bit of, Zorro marries twice. Oh,
God damn it, an hour?
Yeah.
Oh!
It's hard summarizing these books because there's so many layers to it. I mean, it's a 400-page book.
Yeah.
So, it takes you how many hours? 15 hours to read? 12, 15
We're going to have to come up with a way to not go blow by blow, but get the gist of stuff into these.
It'll be my turn to summarize for the next book. I'll write an outline in advance. I think that's what we need to do.
I think that is.
But let's talk about some of the cool stuff in this book, in a little more detail. First of all, one of the things I was thinking as I was reading this, and I was thinking of generally what is the origin story in other superhero comics, because as we talked about, Batman is inspired by Zorro.
Batman's directly inspired by Zorro, absolutely.
So
and the Shadow. It's a combination of the two.
Yeah. The Shadow is really cool too. Yeah. But it's you have this hero, and this is also just true for activism. You have kind of a rough couple of experiences growing up, and then that makes you more empathetic, and then you get education later, and it was very key that as he's getting lessons from Maestro Escalante, he's also being taught, and also the captain on the journey over, he's getting taught about tyranny and injustice, and the captain was there's no such thing as a good king. Yeah. The tyranny is tyranny no matter what.
And 15-year-old Diego's like, what are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
He's appointed by God.
Right.
And he's like, God, okay. Cool.
Right.
All right, God.
So, you're getting not only this kind of experience with something bad happen to you, but then you're getting educated. Because if you get the bad experience, but you don't get the education, you usually become the supervillain.
So, reading this again, and I think that's a point very well taken. Reading this for a second time, I was like, I think that Don Diego, by Isabel Allende, this character that she writes the backstory for, I think he might be one of my favorite fictional characters. And the reason is because he's super committed to justice, but none of his own experiences are the reasons for that. The pirates attacking his family was traumatic, but it was mostly traumatic for his brother, who saw, his mom, raped and murdered. But, the thing that sticks in Diego's brain is another instance later on when white colonialists are torching settlements of indigenous people.
Yeah.
That's the thing that pisses Diego off,
Yeah.
And all of his rivals' actions are he sees this man just being a bastard and being
Right.
greedy and like lascivious, and
Yeah.
he's just like, I don't like this, and I'm gonna do something about it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not a trauma. It's not a personal trauma that forges him.
Yeah.
I think Batman is an interesting character because he's exactly what would happen to a rich person who experienced a trauma. He would be monomaniacal about it, focus on it for the rest of his life, and let it create everything around him.
And
Batman
become
has
gloomy.
never. What's that?
Gloomy and brooding.
Well, yeah. I mean, maybe not gloomy and brooding, but like so fixated on it that he doesn't see the humanity in other people. You know, like Batman spends his time like, you know, like either fighting supervillains or like stopping people from like doing robberies and burglaries and stuff like that. And I guess it's fine, but it's like Zorro's like gonna stand up for the weak and the poor. You know, that's fucking cool, man.
Right.
He's that's some Jean Valjean shit, is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and like then at one point, Maestro Escalante says something to him like when he's like gonna go like stand up for some people, and he's like. It's not fair, and Maestro Escalante's like, life isn't fair.
Yeah.
And he says, yeah, it's not fair, but I plan on doing everything in my power to make it so.
Yes.
Right? So
that's
it's like
so fucking cool.
Right,
man.
right. It's like you can't always level the playing field, but you can take action.
Absolutely. And like the thing about at the end of the book, when Isabel's narrating, and she like reveals herself to be the third Zorro, she's like, I think the thing about Zorro that's so cool is you don't need anything to be Zorro but to be brave and to wear a mask.
Right.
You know?
Right. We can be Zorro.
We can all be Zorro.
Yeah, because she says in her interview, she's like, he doesn't have any powers. He has like kind of a complex upbringing because he's a mixed race.
Yeah.
But like
that just makes him empathetic.
That just makes him empathetic. And he, like having to walk in two worlds makes you like more empathetic.
Yeah.
I also really liked the La Justicia, which was a direct counter to the Spanish Inquisition.
Absolutely.
And it was like, and that's also true. A lot of like secret societies in the 17th through 19th centuries, and a lot of these things, even like the Freemasons actually pop up in response to the abuses of the Catholic Church building the cathedrals.
Yeah,
they're
right.
Freemasons. So
yes.
They're actually originally a labor union that like builds themselves up as a way of organizing. That's like
I didn't know that's what the origins of that.
Yeah, so they become
was.
a learned society because they amass a significant amount of power later through their union efforts, and then ultimately the aristocracy like kind of co-opts it.
Yeah, and turns them into like a boogeyman and
well, no, that's true. Many of the aristocracy become a part of the Freemasons later.
But they have like become a symbol of like the sinister secret society, especially in America.
Yeah, and that was largely like the Inquisition and a lot of the other because they oppose. A lot of what they do is they oppose like tyranny, right?
Yeah.
And if you remember, like, well, I don't know if you know this, most of the founding fathers were also Freemasons, right?
Yeah, or at least like half of them.
And so a lot of it was kind of a fad to be a Freemason during the Enlightenment, and I actually briefly joined the Freemasons. I didn't go through all the rituals because like I got there and like hung out, and it was just really a bunch of old guys like talking philosophy, and I was like, this is boring. So, but it was like a society. It was like it was like a secret society of like wealth and power that was also rival to a lot of the other things that was going on.
Yeah.
And so like in this, La Justicia is basically like the answer to the Inquisition. And like here's an interesting fact that she brings up very briefly is like when you were accused by the Inquisition, the accuser got the wealth.
Yes.
So if you accuse like your neighbor of being like a heretic, and they decide that your neighbor's a heretic, you get your neighbor's stuff.
Yeah, and also their family loses all of their honor. So basically, they lose all of their status.
Right.
So if you want to use like the Inquisition to take out a rival, to take out an enemy, you can, and that's exactly what happens in Zorro.
Right. It is.
You know.
Let's see.
Yeah, that's how he gets Don Diego's things. He's just like, his dad was a fucking traitor.
And the pirates thing. So I wanted to talk about the pirates thing.
Yeah.
Because anthropologist Davis Graeber's final like posthumanist book is called Pirate Libertaria or the or Pirate Enlightenment or the New Libertaria. Okay.
Okay.
And it is about how the Madagascar pirates actually build this incredible democratic society off the coast of Madagascar that very much mirrors what's going on in Zorro.
And that was actually a real place
and
too.
that was a real place too.
Yeah.
So it's like important to understand, like, we think of pirates and Pirates of the Caribbean, and yes, there were pirates that were like marauders and did things and stole ships, and a lot of these people did too.
The worst violence that is committed in this book is committed by pirates. Actually.
Definitely. And pirates could be incredibly brutal, but when they went home, when they actually went home, they actually had these democratic societies. In the Madagascar society, the women actually like had a lot of power.
That's tight as hell.
So, and then so David Graeber's argument is actually that the Madagascar pirates in particular had some of their like writings and thoughts actually influenced the European Enlightenment.
Really?
So like that's his argument for the whole book. It's a short read,
Okay.
but I recommend it, and it like very clearly like wasn't entirely finished. It was like a long essay, and he clearly needed to.
He's like passed away at a young age. Right?
He died of COVID.
Oh shit!
So he died of COVID in 2020. Complications from COVID. He had just finished writing The Dawn of Everything with David. What's the archaeologist? Anyway, he co-wrote with an archaeologist The Dawn of Everything, which is really another challenge to European Enlightenment. So he's saying that like. His arguments are you think that European Enlightenment was unique to Europe. It was not. They borrowed ideas from the Mongols. They borrowed ideas from Islamic Society. They borrowed ideas from the Americas, specifically the Iroquois Confederation. And they have a character. Yeah, well, the Jesuit writings like were recording all the debates that were happening between the Europeans and the Iroquois Confederation. And like the Iroquois were like making fun of like Europeans. You guys have homeless people, and you're calling us savage. Like you have starvation, and you're calling us savage. Your cities smell terrible because the Iroquois had ambassadors that went over to Europe and talk to the Europeans and help to spread some of these ideas. And then all the Jesuit writings are literally mentioned by like people like Rousseau and John Locke, literally mentioning the indigenous knowledge in their own writings. So like a lot of David Graeber's, like if you really actually look at the Enlightenment, the reason for the rise of the Enlightenment is non-European ideas. And that's his big his final argument is it's not just like different civilizations, but it was also like pirates too. So I just wanted to like bring that up. It was like a really cool thing, and like some people dispute some of this stuff, of course, but there's like they actually make some pretty strong arguments about the complexities of like decentering like Europe as this really special thing, but rather it was an amalgamation of ideas from many cultures and societies.
How things always work, and why like diversity and integration is always advantageous because people with different experiences are going to come up with different ideas
and solve problems
you have
that you couldn't solve before.
Exactly. One of the things that I thought really stood out to me too is that D. Ramu, the father of Juliana and Isabel, I think he's a really like prescient example of liberal thinkers, like especially like wealthy liberals in our modern day, because
of just really every day, right?
Or of any day, but it's like I think it feels especially like pointed to me now because we have all these people, all these institutions, like the New York Times, and like just rich like fucking like Jon Stewart, like rich influential people who are very self-satisfied to be like a liberal and to think about things progressively, but they're kind of like cowardly and actually conservative in the way they behave and act, It's the
NIMBY stuff. Right?
Absolutely.
Let's have green power. Let's have windmills, but not in my backyard.
Yeah, I'm a little bit afraid of nuclear,
Right.
And like Jon Stewart's whole attitude to like when the fucking Tea Party's happening, and he's like, these guys make some very good points about taxation. Isn't it? Shouldn't we be listening to the common man? Isn't the common man so interesting? But then when like Occupy Wall Street happens, he's like, look at these fucking guys over here. These fucking idiots in a park just sitting there, dum-dums. I'm going to send all my correspondents out to make fun of them, that kind of bullshit. But yeah, their dad is like a prominent liberal thinker in Barcelona in this era, but he's completely content to just sit in his library and talk to like the second most powerful man in the nation about just like modernism and like how Napoleon's so enlightened because he doesn't believe in God and all of that bullshit. And then like when this guy gives him a warning that specifically like will have an impact on his life, you know, he like doesn't even take him up on that. He doesn't. Right. He can't pick up on any fucking cue.
Well,
you know?
one piece to remember.
It's whichever way the wind is blowing.
Right, and one piece to remember is that like Spain had made a constitution in 1812, and like no one enforces it.
No,
like, Ferdinando the
Ferdinand
seventh
comes back.
Is it seven?
Seven, yeah.
Yeah. So he comes back into power, and like literally all of the people who are like with the aristocracy before are just like, okay, you can kind of have the things back. So here's this, and this guy ends up losing everything because he does nothing to enforce it.
Oh, and that was literally a thing he said. He's like, when the Chevalier is telling him to like get out of here, he's like, no, it's fine. We've got this great new constitution now. He's gonna have to respect it by law. And it's like, motherfucker, he makes the laws. It's like people talking. It's like it just reminds me of nobody but Planned Parenthood being concerned about like keeping Roe versus Wade intact, or like maybe making it like actual law, not constitutional law, but actual like legislation, you know, in an important way for like 40 years. And then it gets chipped away at over time by the Supreme Court, who are the ones who like gave the ruling. So they're the ones who can take, like kings, they can get rid of any law that they have enacted at a whim. Basically, they can just have a conservative, like, you know, just like have someone in Texas like rule on something, send it up to them, and they can be like, yeah, no, people, you know, people with black shoes definitely got to go into a concentration camp.
Yeah,
like, you know, they can take away our liberties at any point if they want to.
And we're talking a lot lately about like an imperial presidency, as because like you know that concept comes from like the Nixon administration, like the imperial executive,
absolutely.
right? And like a president overstepping their power. And a lot of people are talking about that with Trump. And I've heard a few people also talking recently about an imperial Supreme Court,
which is definitely
what's going on, like making these incredible rulings, you know, where the liberals of the court are like, what are you doing? Are you insane? Like
mostly only Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. I mean, she's like the one who's like really like, you guys, there's a difference between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law, and you're missing the spirit of the law.
Yeah.
So, you know, and they fought real hard to keep her out of office, but you know, I mean, when you have 5 conservative members, there's not a whole lot you can do anyway. But yeah, so like, there's a lot of stuff in this book that really, I mean, she really touches on so much. And then, like, there was another point.
The actions you can take.
And also, like, she very subtly puts in, as you mentioned earlier before we got on, about, like, the impact of colonialism on, like Zorro's mother's tribe.
Yeah.
Like, when he gets back after these adventures in Spain, he finally gets back. They're, like, skinny and starving to death.
Yeah.
Because colonialism has been ugly for
Absolutely. Them. It's been pushing them farther and farther from where they were settled originally, which was in Los Angeles, the Pueblo of Los Angeles. And now they're in the mountains, which is far. I don't know if you've been to Los Angeles. It takes them 2 days on horseback to get there.
Right, because they actually mentioned that specifically. They finally meet his mother, and his mother's like so scrawny.
Yeah, she's like, because Isabel's been picturing these super brave and valiant women that they've been describing, her friends have been describing in Spain for the last 5 years. She meets them, and they're like shrunken. You know, they're malnourished, and you know, it's a thing. I mean, literally what happened to them is happening to our civil rights right now. They're getting slowly chipped away at, you know, and just pushed and pushed and pushed. And every increment doesn't seem to matter that much.
Right.
But then when you add them all up, you have this badass warrior woman who's basically like looking like a waif, you know, in rags.
Right.
And it's fucking abominable. But, you know, that's what happens over time, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, but you got to live like Zorro, right? You do everything in your power.
Yes.
Whatever that power is, because we all have different skills. We all have different abilities.
Absolutely.
So you do what's in your power. Like, I don't know, hosting a podcast, I guess.
Yes, yeah, everybody does that though.
But no, you
build community.
You build community. You create you have hard conversations with people you don't necessarily agree with.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't, then who is going to have the conversation?
Absolutely.
There was this one great conversation with what's the name of the recent congressperson who's the first trans congressperson? Do you remember what her name is?
I don't.
But I saw an interview with her, and she was talking about how like, it's this hard thing, being a trans person, I have this duty of kind of like educating people. And she's like, but a lot of people, like, especially people who are oppressed, are like, I don't have the time or energy to educate people. And she's like, but then who will?
Yeah, absolutely.
But who will? And that doesn't mean everybody who has it. But if I wanted someone to know about autism, I have got to talk to them about autism.
Yeah, man.
Because otherwise, like, I just have to deal with the Rain Man stereotypes over and over again, right?
Yeah, that fucking movie.
Or you being bisexual.
Yeah.
You've got to, like...
if you're a queer person, you got to tell people about it,
Yeah.
And, like, you don't have to, like, broadcast it, but you have to... I think one of the most important things that people can do these days, like, on a daily basis, because we're always looking for, like, things that we can do on a daily basis to make the world better in this, like, really bleak time. And I think it's, like, have conversations with people that that don't agree with you. We all know good people who have, like, conservative ideas. I have a bunch of friends who are Catholic because I work for a Catholic business. I'm in a theater troupe that's mostly Catholic. Mm-hmm. And I love doing theater, and they're very good people, and a lot of them are like liberal Catholics, but some of them aren't. And like, I just talk to them and I demonstrate that I'm a person and that I see that they're a person. And sometimes I'll make a remark, or we'll get into a conversation about something. Mm-hmm. And you just gotta, be kind. Because that's one of the things about Zorro too, is he's a kind person. He's not a bully like Batman is, Yeah. He's like...
Batman's kind of a dick.
Batman's a dick. He's a fascist, actually. But, like, that's a whole different conversation to have. But Robin is cool, Like,
well, Robin's got that carnival background. One of the Robins.
Exactly. The best one, yeah. Well, the second best one, maybe.
But yeah, having this conversation.
Conversation with people. Be kind to people. And, like... show them your humanity, but when you see something unjust happening, stand up for the thing that's happening to that person, because that's what Zorro would do, That's what Jean Valjean would do. Be cool like them, because we need more cool people in the world, and we need people to remember that they can be brave to get through this bullshit.
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of a good place to stop.
I think it is.
And we have no questions. We see we got 4 people watching right now.
Yes.
You guys, if you have questions or thoughts, you're always welcome to add them into this podcast.
If my description of the book wasn't very clear, definitely ask a question.
Yeah, for sure. And that's true of any book we cover. Mm-hmm. We love interactions.
Yes.
And we welcome them, and they will they'll stay around forever. These questions as long as the podcast is around. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Next time,
right?
Our next one is my pick. And I'm doing a book that neither of us has read.
Oh, yeah, that's
right. Like the first one that neither
would be the first one.
No, Grapes of Wrath, neither of us read.
Oh, sure, you're right. Yeah.
It Can't Happen Here.
Can't Happen.
A 1935 novel, It Can't Happen Here. And it is about, it's a response to the rise of Hitler in the late 1920s, early 1930s in Germany. And it's an American author writing about a rise of fascism in 1935 happening in America.
Yes.
That's about all I know about the book at the moment, because I try to kind of like be a little blind before we go into it, rather than like trying to get cliff notes and mess with my perspective or whatever. So we'll see, but it's kind of like a cautionary tale for Americans, which I thought was like a really good topic to cover right now in American history.
One interesting thing that Isabel Allende said when she was being interviewed in this book too,
mm-hmm.
This might be a fun thing to close on given the topic that we're about to discuss next time. She said that when asked, like, the United States was to a Chilean an enemy country in the 70s, a very enemy country to her specifically. How did you overcome that and learn to love it? She said that Isabel Allende's father was assassinated, by the way. He was the president, actually.
And that's a coup backed by the CIA.
Yeah, exactly. I know that most Americans are not responsible for the evil that their government has done or does today abroad. Most people in this country have good intentions. They think of themselves as decent citizens and moral human beings. They want to do good. But there is great ignorance and indifference. The United States has supported in other countries the kind of brutal tyranny that it would never tolerate on its own territory. If Americans were better aware of the atrocities that have been committed in their name and with their tax money, they would be horrified. I think that's true. And I think that the reason most people aren't more horrified is that they're ignorant.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people.
And there's a lot of things to distract us these days, right? So
absolutely.
Read good books, have good conversations. I mean, that is like really the first step to positive social change.
Absolutely.
So, all right.
All right.
We'll see you next time.
Absolutely. Bye, guys. All right. How long was that one? Not bad.
No, hour 19.